Here we begin. Hi, Kaushik.
Hi, Krishna.
Thanks
How
for
is
joining.
it going?
Well, everything is good. So, thanks for joining me. So, let me directly begin. So, what do you do these days and where are you working?
So I'm an electronics engineer. I work in one of the biggest fruit paste companies
Okay.
here in Germany. So they are, yeah, you will know they are the biggest smartphone vendor in the world.
Right.
Very interesting job. Yeah.
So, what's your typical workday like? Like, what do you do?
I am responsible for testing chips, mobile phone chips, uh, especially in the field of power management ICs. So we call it power management ICs in the electronics field. This is a very important part of the platform. And yeah, I am responsible for testing those chips, circuits in those chips.
This this field looks like it's very specialized, right? Power management. Did you have this subject in university, or like how did you know that I'm interested in this topic?
It's a I somehow came into it. I've been working in this field since now 11 years. I did not start with this, but I had a good basic electronics knowledge. It's basically you need to be strong in your fundamentals. And since the last 10, 12 years, I loved it and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it was just by accident. It was not planned.
Cool.
And I'm still doing it. Yeah, so that's good.
All right. So let me start from the beginning. So where were you in India and where did you study?
So I did my engineering in Bangalore, uh, the Silicon Valley of India, of Asia. So immediately I studied electronics and instrumentation engineering. So just after my studies, I got a job in instrumentation field in Honeywell. So that was a quite a famous company in Bangalore then. And I started off as a software engineer, but in the automation domain, in the industrial automation domain, quite related to what I had studied in my engineering. And after about a year and a half of working, yeah, I thought it's a good time to do my higher studies, and I applied to Germany, and here I am since then. So since 2004 April, I'm here. So it's now 17 years. Yeah, more than 17 years.
Wow. So take me through this, right? So after finishing your engineering, it must have been difficult to get a job, that too in Honeywell, right? It's one of the best companies for this kind of stuff. How did you crack that? And how did you get the interview and where did you start?
Yeah, so that that time it was just the beginning, or let's say that's when the IT industry was in a nascent stage. Almost all engineers were getting jobs in or in these software companies, Infosys, Wipro, TCS, and so on, and call centers. There was not too many jobs, so some of my friends, because they had to work, they wanted to work, they immediately got into call center jobs, which was easy to get then. I took some time. It took me some months. I wrote some exams, even to companies like Infosys, TCS. They had those entrance exams off campus, and I cleared all of them, even in Honeywell as well. And somehow Honeywell then was highly paying company, and the field was also quite close to what I had studied. So I went through the interviews, and it was all off campus. So there were five, 6 rounds of interviews then after finishing the written exam. So yeah, it was quite a long process of selection, but it was a good training. I have to say I was quite underprepared. It was just I was just lucky. Okay, a little bit. I had some good basics foundation in engineering, so I could answer most of the questions. Uh, I was not a topper in engineering. I would say, in top 5, 10% of the class, maybe top five, maybe. And but it was somehow got through it, got through the grilling in the interviews.
Cool. And how did you know that electronics was a subject that you wanted to get into, and how did you apply?
It was not, yeah, it was not planned. Of course, I applied for, since I had done my engineering in instrumentation and electronics, I applied for subjects related to that for my master's. So I did my master's in sensor systems technology. That
Wow.
is quite close to electronics. So sensorics, which is, yeah, which for which you need electronics. And even in that, there is a huge variety. The field is huge to specialize in. I did not really specialize in one specific field, but yeah, and somehow that was very interesting, and that um, that chose me. I would say that field came to me, and yeah, I'm glad that I did that. I
So
didn't know. Yeah.
where did you do your master's from?
I did my master's in Karlsruhe, Hochschule Karlsruhe. That time it was called Fachhochschule, University of Applied Sciences. So, and that was a very interesting experience, and I learned a lot. It was very practical oriented, industry oriented, and the courses were very much geared up towards the industry practical applications. So that gave me a great insight into how companies work, how products are made, and basics of sensorics, let's say. Yeah.
Right. So when you started applying, take me through the journey of like, how did you go to apply to these colleges? Did you go to the website? Did you write some
Yes.
exam? So how was the whole process like, if you
So
remember?
yeah, those days we had still those dial-up modems. It takes a long time to get
Right.
connected. And I was lucky. I had internet at home. I had a computer, so I would spend almost during when I was working in Honeywell. After the first 1 year, I mean, even in the first year, I wrote to GRE as well to go to the US, and spent quite some time. Every evening I spent an hour or so browsing. Even then it was quite good. I mean, I could find most of my info about universities online, and a few friends who had already gone and so on, and mix of both. I did my research mostly myself, went through a lot of research, at least many months, so a couple of hours every day, at least 3 4 days a week. And
Three,
yeah,
4 days a week.
yes, so every evening spend an hour or so going
Got it.
through courses. What are the different masters? Also, there's so many choices. No, you wanted to do a master's. I did not know what I wanted to do, but at least some rough idea. So based on that, just applying wherever possible, and this worked through. This came through. Yeah.
And what was the GRE score?
GRE was not so good that time. It was 2,400 was the max. I think I scored something like 1970,
Cool.
so little less than 2,000. though I expected much more, but yeah, that was that.
Right.
And that made it more difficult, or you wouldn't get funding, assistantships or scholarships for the American universities, or you would get it in the much lower ranked universities. So somehow I did apply for a few, but I was not so very interested. Somehow Germany happened. Germany was much more attractive. It was cheaper. German education is free. Tuition fee is free. Only you have to take care of the living expenses. So that was very enticing. And of course, the technical quality of education was also very good, even though it was free. So that made the choice a little more easier and could focus more on Germany.
Right. And I can imagine that you had a very nice job. It pays you well. Your parents are happy. And what made you take the risk of like leaving everything and coming to Germany? Was there someone who was guiding you through this, or was this all your decision?
I had a friend, a close friend, who had already come here a year before I came here. He had just worked for a few months in a call center and then came here to do his master's. So he was already here, and he had given me some inputs. But at the end of the day, it was my choice. Most of my friends were shocked. I was earning well. It was very good, great career. But somehow I thought this is a good time to do something. This was the age to study. I had even got through exam for to become a scientist in the DRDO, Indian Defense Research Organization. That was also a tough exam, and 20,000 people applying, and I was one of the five who got selected. But yeah, that did not work out. But and then this came through after some time, and I thought this would be a good choice, and yeah, I came. It was
Cool.
not planned. It was very unplanned.
Okay. And let's say that you finished your studies and now you're in Germany. How did you study for languages, like for example German? And the second question was like, you spent 2 to 3 years here. How much did you spend in total back in the day in euros?
Yeah, so luckily Germany that time already was not so well known in India as a destination for higher studies. And they had just opened up with English education for the technical engineering fields in masters. So they had masters in English. They started in 98, I think. And I came in 2004. So it was already, there were 4 or 5 batches that had passed out. They had some experience. People had good things to talk about. And yeah, regarding expenses, you need to carry 1 year of living expenses at the beginning. So at that time, that was around 600 into 12, around 8,700 euros. So 8,500 euros I needed to carry as a demand draft. 8,500 into 6, that was around 60 rupees, I think, then. So, yeah, around 5 to 6 lakhs, 5 lakhs, I think.
For complete
And
education?
yeah, for the first year, only
For
for
the
the
first
first
year?
year of
Right.
living expenses. So, assuming that you will not be able to earn anything, you are expected to have enough money to survive at least for the first year. I
Right.
mean, you need to
Suppose
show
you
that
live luxuriously, right?
uh, a decent student's life. I mean,
Right.
the German government calculated that living expenses would be around 700 euros a month for a student. So, based on that, and I think overall I spent much less than that. I was lucky because after 6 months, I was able to find a student job, working student in a company, in a software company. And that was quite a lot of help. That uh, offset all my living expenses. So I did not even have to spend whatever I brought. So eventually I could even pay that back
Right.
after in the second year, I would say. Yeah.
Right. And so you said that you didn't have to learn German because they had your course was in English. So
Yeah.
when did you start learning German? And is it a
German,
requirement to come?
German is most of the engineering fields. German is not a requirement. It's nice to know. I have learned it now, but then I did not think it was needed. Uh, I was not against learning it, but there was also free courses in this university, so I had to anyway learn. I learned 3 levels in those 3 semesters that I studied, and uh, but the first 3 years of my life, I did not really put in any effort to learn German. I learned some basics, but I have to say, when I started working, I was lucky to have a private tutor from my employers, first employers. So, and in the first 3 years of my job, I had a private tutor, almost studying every week with him, and that was when I learned most of my German. So the first 3 years, I did not learn it, I did not need it, and yeah, it was still I could get by easily. Now, hindsight, when I look back, I would say it's nice to learn. It's better to learn. I would recommend anybody wanting to come to Germany. It will make your life easier. That's it. You can, of course, live without it, but if you don't know it, it makes it a tad easier.
Right. So I can imagine that studies in Germany would have not been simple, right? And coming from an Indian education system to a German one, what were the challenges and what was easy and what was hard during your time in the university?
So the easy part is even in the masters, I would say at least 1/3 of the stuff, maybe 40% of the stuff that I learned, I had already learned it in India. But here there was a lot of focus on drilling all those basic concepts, the foundation into you, and that you not know it in a intellectual way, like in during engineering you mug it up or you learn something without really understanding the depth. And here you really go deep into it and you really know, you understand the depth of the subject. And there is a lot of, with practical examples, you are made to think about it and experience it fully, and that I enjoyed. And that's where the difficult part is. So a lot of exams are based on practical problems, and you can solve those practical problems, but if you're not sure of your basics, if you don't know how things work, and if you just have learned it by heart, then it's not easy to solve those questions. And that helped me. I mean, the first year it was a struggle, but then I got used to it. I really am grateful for the knowledge learning here in Germany than what I got in the masters. It's keeping me even now quite up to date, and I'm able to manage all the different complex topics because of the foundation that I got.
What would you say is the most a differentiating factor between professors in India and professors in Germany? Like, do you think that professors in Germany are more knowledgeable to professors in India, or there's some emotional aspect more kinder, or what's the difference?
Yes, in terms of knowledge level, yes, there is a lot of focus placed on quality. So even the professors, what I got to know, at least in my university, most of them have done their PhD, and they have at least some years of industry experience, and then they come into the academic line. mm, they have good practical experience, and then they start teaching. And even when they are teaching, they have continuous industry exposure. They do projects for companies, they are doing research, they are doing different things which have practical applications for the government, for industry. And that there's a close interaction with industry. And so as a student, you're exposed already to what is happening outside in the industry, and you're not studying. It's not just academic knowledge. And that, I think, in India is still missing. Is better probably now, but even then there can be still much more done. It's a very complex ecosystem. You need to build it up from all sides. You need to have a lot of companies. You need to also, companies are respecting universities, the knowledge, the professors. So they come to them, they give them work, they give them research projects, funding. So it's a both ways. So, and that needs to happen much more in India. I think it's not yet up to the mark.
Right. Um, I wanted to also ask, like, how did you keep your spirits high? So you are like so many miles away from your home country, and it can get quite lonely, right? Because you're doing
Yeah,
everything alone. And how do you survive in a situation like this without
I
getting
was I was very very lucky. So there, I volunteer with a amazing NGO called the Art of Living Foundation. I did the Art of Living yoga meditation programs already in India when I was working in Honeywell, and that kept me really strong. And even here in Germany, we have a very active community of Art of Living volunteers and teachers and the family. And when I was studying, I was always in touch. I was doing my daily practices, my yoga, meditation, breathing exercises. That was the only thing that was keeping me going. I have to say, I did not go back home for the first 2.5 years until I got a job, even though I could have. But I had initially decided that I will directly go back home after my studies and work in India, which did not happen. But yeah, I mean, when I got a job, I visited. So those first 2.5 years, it was completely Art of Living practices and the community. I was able to meet the founder, His Holiness Shri Shri Ravi Shankarji, here close to my university. He used to come to the European Center, which was very close to my university. So that kept me really going. He was an inspiration, and yeah, that's the best thing I would say out of this. Also, another reason for me to come to Germany, because I checked that if I would have a nice community, and that made my decision easier. So Art of Living was there, and the European Center was very close to my university. So all that helped.
right? And you said this community is very important. Um, what would you recommend a new person going abroad, a new student trying to do masters abroad? Like, would you recommend that he also has a good community, or do you think it's possible to complete your masters and be successful on your own? So what's your personal
Totally,
take on
totally.
this?
Definitely, definitely. Of course, there have been many more before me. And of course, in the last 15 years, there have been much, much more people who have come here and were very successful. I think individually, it's just a matter of your uh, mental strength, how well grounded you are. And as Indians, I think we have that grounding, we have that family, we have that grounding. We are already brought up with that. So I think that way it has made us ready for facing any kind of challenge. Yeah. Anyway, most of Indians are there in the US and many other countries, the UK, for example, and so on. So it's possible. It's quite easy. It's not a big deal.
Right. And what do you think is the deciding factor for you between US, Germany, UK, and other countries like Canada? Why did you choose Germany? And
For
was there a
me,
reason?
it was the cost benefit analysis. Simple.
Okay.
So benefit was very high. Technical education in Germany is as good, if not even better, than many other countries, and the cost is very low. So you get the best education for the lowest cost, and that was the easiest choice to make. And I would recommend everybody to come here for higher studies,
Right.
especially engineering and science fields.
Awesome. And what is, how long did it take for you to be at a point where you were comfortable? Like, I know after, like, first year after finishing your engineering or your masters, you need to, you may have a loan, you may have to pay your parents back or your bank back. Like, how long does it take between completing your masters and being comfortable, like where you are happy with the job you have?
Yeah, so financially, I think, as I said, I was able to finish all my debts and loans. I think in the first year or 1.5 years after my studies when I started working.
Right.
And then in terms of the country here, yeah, I was comfortable. Of course, when I started working, and the more I started learning the language in my job, and I had the private tutor, it made me enjoy it more. It made me realize the smaller, finer things in Germany, understand the life here better, and made me much more at ease. And so, yeah, a couple of years after studies, I was already sure that I would stay here for a long time. If I had the option, and luckily it worked out that way.
Right. And you have been in Germany for almost more than 15 years, right? So
Yeah.
can you talk a bit about work-life balance?
Oh,
And
it's the best.
okay.
Germany, I would say, the workers' law, the labor laws are the best, are very much tailored towards the employees or workers. And so if you get a job, you're not expected to do a lot of extra or undue hours, and there is a lot of freedom, and there's a lot of emphasis given on work-life balance. And I would say that is another attraction to be working here. So it's a beautiful, perfect balance. So there is also enough uh, vacation days, on average at least 2 days in a month, so which is at least 24 days in a year. Every company has to provide vacation. So, but most companies do up to give up to 30 days, so, which is quite good. And yeah, so the rest of the features, of course, you maybe earn a little less than other countries like in the US or UK or wherever, but the social security is very good. So you pay a lot of taxes for your health insurance, for your unemployment insurance, for your pension, and so on. So, which makes you secure. So if you, even if you fall sick, yes, you don't have to dip out of your pocket. You're fully taken care of. You're fully secure. And if you lose a job, even that is also taken care of. After a few years of paying taxes, contributing to the social security, you are quite secure. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Kaushik. It was really nice talking to you. If someone wants to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you? On Twitter or email? Can you just share some social media links?
Yeah. Yes. So my Twitter link is Kaushik JGD, and you can just write to me also on my Art of Living email ID, kaushik@artofliving.de.
Awesome.
So yeah, that would be the easiest way. Should
Cool.
be able to.
Thanks, Kaushik, and have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you, Krishna. You too. Have a great evening and wish you all the best.